Now we will move to the southern part of France. And Corine Alberge, she's also an neonatologist and responsible for the follow-up program in Toulouse, yes, I think. The Toulouse region, région de quoi?
The region is several departments, an area. I'll show you.
Yeah,
later.
okay, fine, thank you. So, let's see, Corine. This is yours.
Yes.
This is yours?
Yes, that's the beginning. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure for me to attend the meeting and share my experience. We listened a lot of very interesting things from Mr. Edlund before, and my talk will be easier with my very bad English, because we share the same approach in Toulouse, in the south of France, and this is what we try to implement in our region, but we have just so little financial support to do it. So I'm going to talk about an early post-discharge intervention program about psychomotor therapy for very premature infants. First, I would like to give you the background. Our region, Midi-Pyrénées, is a big one in the southwest of France with around 33,000 births per year. There are many rural areas, and this is a reason of concern for access to care. In 2005, through national expertise, special emphasis has been put on the need to organize the follow-up for vulnerable babies. So we had the chance to create a regional network related to the screening and care for this baby. From that moment on, a financial support was given by the Health Regional Agency. To make the network successful, we have been focusing on two essential aspects: care organization in local areas, supported by close cooperation, and professional skills. And we are performing more and more trainings. The great professional commitment came as a nice surprise for me. A lot of physiotherapists and psychomotor therapists has been involved and wanted to improve their knowledge and skills. Because long-term development can be impaired for premature babies, early and adapted care in a continuum after the hospital discharge appeared critical and had to be implemented, also according to the importance of brain plasticity in the 2 first years. I thought that psychomotor therapists could be key in the process because their job consists in an approach through body feeling and in interaction with the environment. First, we conducted a pilot study in order to train professionals. Then the study took place at the Toulouse University Hospital from January 2009 to August 2014. The aim was to determine whether the early psychomotor therapy improves the psychomotor development at 2 years of corrected age. Because of the program characteristics, we conducted a simple blind randomized trial with an intervention and a control group. The intervention group received 21-hour sessions of psychomotor therapy between 2 and 9 months of corrected age after discharge. Assessment and care were standardized according to the previous training, and intervention was delivered close to home. Infants born before 30 weeks were included before discharge. Infants with severe neurological complication or whose mother had a severe physical or mental disease were excluded. The psychomotor development was evaluated according to the Bailey scale, 3rd edition, at 2 years of corrected age. An intermediate point was provided at 9 months of corrected age. It was performed in a blind manner by 2 psychomotor therapists. In addition, pediatric standardized assessments and psychologic semi-directive interviews for parents were conducted. Parents also completed a self-administering questionnaire relating to the post-traumatic stress. 161 infants were included. At 9 months of corrected age, 149 were still followed, and 126 were at age of 2. But only 114 completed the study, 57 in each group. At last, 47 infants were lost to follow-up. The psychomotor intervention takes into account both the particular components of the mother and father, of course, the child and the diet. The aim is to overcome and maybe recover from the sensory stress and destimulation of the neonatal period. Psychomotor therapists try to restore sensory motor and perceptive integration through body and emotional positive feelings. With a detailed scale, they analyze the baby behaviors, specific needs, and parents' adjustment. Of course, the therapy is based on parents-infants interaction and bonding, but the baby needs an individual support to overcome deviant development. Besides, to support parents and guide them, professionals must be skilled to analyze very subtle and soft signs as a continuation of the neonatal period, but taking into account the specific maturing process, and this is very difficult. Together, the psychomotor therapist and the parents learn to decode the baby's signals. This is a real partnership leading to the baby discovery, and not a directive education. Only under these conditions will the parents experiment more positive feelings, become more confident in their own skills, and more sensitive and adjusted to their baby. Another important field must be considered for immature babies. Body axis building is disturbed by the maturing imbalance between brain and brainstem. Thereby, the motor response to stimulation or feeling is extension of the body axis. The side effect remains memorized as an engram that disrupts body axis building in the 3 planes of the space and leads to high muscle tone in the back. Therefore, general movements and motor organization are disturbed. Besides, vestibular and proprioceptive systems are also disturbed. All this contributes to impair early coordinations between eyes, hands, and mouth, communication skill, tonico-emotional self-regulation, and sensory attention. Removing the high muscle tone is the job of physiotherapists in France. But the psychomotor therapists and all the other professionals have to pay attention to body axis extension. And before interacting with the baby, we must first reshape the body inflection from the axis and not from the limb. Otherwise, the baby memorizes abnormal body feelings that will be cascaded through the later developments. We can see that at baseline, infants' characteristics didn't differ in the 2 groups. Pediatric assessment at baseline showed that in the intervention group, infants more often had impairment of interactions behaviors, such as social smile, first babbling, attention to the voice, and calming down. Frequency of skull deformation, abnormal general movements, and abnormal muscle tone didn't differ, as well as a muscle tone at 2 years. But despite the lack of difference at the pediatric neurological assessment, physiotherapy was more often delivered in the control group within the first year. The mother's social characteristics, including school level, mother living alone, or coming from a poor country, didn't differ between the 2 groups. The mother's anxiety, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and adjustment to the child didn't differ either. But mother depression history and depression within the first year were far more frequent in the intervention group. Let's compare the different fields of the Bailey scale. It evaluates the cognitive, communication, and motor skills. I've chosen to show you the scale score that separate expressive and receptive communication and fine and gross motor skills. Marks are displayed between 1 and 19. The results don't differ to the composite score that you know. The raw analysis showed an effect of the intervention on the gross motor skills, and in the same way, the cognitive score tended to increase in the intervention group. There weren't any differences for the receptive communication, expressive communication, and fine motor skills. At 2 years of corrected age, improvement wasn't sustained. In contrast, the fine motor score tended to be lower in the intervention group. Our study wasn't large enough to take into account all the confusing factors. However, we tried to explore independent factors linked to a lower development. Most of the results are not surprising. As you can see, small for gestational age and infants staying for a long time at the hospital tend to have lower development in all the fields. Impairment of interactions behaviors at baseline was linked to lower cognitive score and tended to decrease the gross motor skills. In contrast, BPD was associated with higher gross motor skills. High muscle tone was linked to a reduced receptive communication and gross motor skills. Mothers' social risk factors, psychological factors, especially depression and post-traumatic stress syndrome, was linked to lower communication skills. And physiotherapy tended to improve fine motor skills. Some of these variables were unbalanced in the two groups and could impact the results. In particular, mother depression and post-traumatic stress syndrome, as well as interaction behaviors impairment and physiotherapy care. We tried different models for adjustment. Whatever the model selected, at 9 months, the benefit tended to remain significant for the gross motor skill, but not for the cognitive score and the others. At 2 years, results didn't reach the significant level for any field, but fine motor tended to remain better in the control group. And we failed to find any explanation because of an obvious lack of power. Psychomotor therapy had a slight benefit at 9 months of corrected age on cognitive and gross motor skills, but wasn't sustained at 2 years. Maybe the intervention wasn't long enough. We highlighted risk factors of early development impairment. And our study confirms previous reports concerning the need to support infant sensory motor development and to help parents being parents. There is a need of very specialized psychomotor therapists, physiotherapists, and psychologists. Our study helped us to improve the assessment of the family needs and to improve care. The main weakness of the study was the lack of power. It didn't allow us taking into account all the confusing factors. Especially mother depression and physiotherapy care could impact the results. Besides, this kind of care was just implemented when we started the study. Probably we weren't competent enough for pediatric screening and for psychomotor care. The good organization of our network allows us to conduct research projects, and a new assessment is planned at the age of 10. We'll analyze further data concerning parent-infant interaction and psychomotor development with the assessment scale. In an obvious way, our practices have dramatically improved. We've implemented a new early post-discharge intervention program. Besides, we're now setting up a cross-look assessment by a pediatrician, a psychologist, and a psychomotor therapist, and also cross-look for care. We have drafted new reference frames for risk factor, early screening, and adapted care contents. And in order to upgrade the professional skills, we have been setting up a university degree for all the professionals involved in early care. We think that an individualist combined intervention program can make support successful. I would like to thank all my collaborators, and thank you for your attention.